So, today's presentation is titled Positive Psychology, or the Psychology of Happiness. Many of you know I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm a faculty member over in the Department of Psychology at ASU. And as a clinical psychologist, the study of positive psychology comes from a place that is somewhat counterintuitive, contradictory, in that I have a great deal of expertise and training in identifying pathology, in assessing for things that have gone wrong, or things that are deficits. And positive psychology, interestingly, flips over to the other side of that coin in terms of personality and looks at instead things that are strengths, things that can help us to be well psychologically, physically. I have several aims today with my talk. And the first is to introduce some of the key concepts of this positive psychology, which of course one can informally refer to as a science of happiness. I want to also tell you what positive psychology research indicates about happiness across the nations, and also how we can use positive psychology to improve our lives and our world in general. Now, to sort of tune into what this means for us as UBUs, I believe that the things I will be talking about today relate to several of our principles, but mostly to the second principle, which is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And I like to think of that last part as meaning also our relationship with ourselves, that being an important human relation that all of us have. But I think this also relates to the sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And I hope that those things will come through today. So let me begin describing positive psychology. And first, it is way, way beyond the scope of my time here today to give a comprehensive review of what positive psychology is. A keyword search in the academic PsycInfo database returned 978 peer-reviewed publications, which in itself excludes many book chapters and other research outlets. And so it's important to keep that in mind. Today, I'm sort of giving you some appetizers instead of the whole enchilada when it comes to what positive psychology is. But I like what Chris Coors and colleagues in a very recent American Psychologist special issue on peace psychology said about positive psychology. They said that it is concerned with positive human experience, such as happiness, hope, and optimism, fulfillment, positive relationships, and more generally, with what makes life worth living. I like this succinct definition, but feel that more detail is needed to convey several key points. Marty Seligman, who is the director of the Positive Psychology Center at Penn, and the person who is most commonly credited with founding the positive psychology movement, further adds that positive psychology focuses on positive experiences in 3 points of time in the past as they relate to well-being and satisfaction, the present centering on happiness, and flow experiences. And flow experiences can be thought of as ones in which you are highly engaged and highly satisfied, and where the time just kind of seems to evaporate. So I think of flow, and I think of an example being my son Owen getting a new Lego set and opening that up and constructing it. It's like time doesn't exist. He's in his element. He's good at doing that building. Very good, startlingly good. And he just like falls into a wormhole that's all his own for a little bit. That's what flow is. But positive psychology also focuses on the future, which has to do with aspects of optimism and hope. Subjective emotional experience is obviously an area of study, obviously, in positive psychology and across these different time points, but so is personality. For example, examining the characteristics that predict success and happiness. And also thinking about institutions and communities and how those can systematically support happiness. Now, before going any further, I've been using the word happiness a lot. And as a psychologist, I like to operationalize things. So let's talk about what happiness is. Now, it turns out what positive psychologists call authentic happiness is a combination of things. It's physical and emotional pleasure. It's personal satisfaction. And a connection to higher meaning or purpose in life. So people who are truly happy live a life with three interrelated qualities. It's a pleasurable life, one in which they have positive emotional experience, joy, gratitude, serenity, hope, amusement, love. And this outpaces negative emotional experience, sadness, worry, fear, hopelessness, distress, emptiness. The authentically happy life is also an engaged life, one where one uses one's personal strengths daily, and in which flow experiences occur and add to your sense of well-being. And finally, authentically happy lives are meaningful lives, ones that include service to a higher purpose or goal. So importantly, feeling good alone is not sufficient to achieving authentic happiness. And in fact, this can be seen as a bad thing in certain circumstances. For example, one might feel pretty good after having bought a new car or house or getting a fancy haircut. Sex is a pleasurable activity and usually followed by feelings of contentment, but these and other materialistic or potentially self-centered pleasures, without any connection to higher purpose, have very temporary positive effects. Positive psychologists relate this to what they call a hedonic treadmill, where people come to rely on purchase after purchase, or self-centered act after self-centered act, just to have positive feelings. Now, this is a particularly salient trap for well-off individuals in wealthy nations, which then begs the question, what does positive psychology tell us about happiness around the world? Well, there are several major international polls that are conducted on a regular basis that examine how life satisfaction varies from country to country and over time. These are almost fully comprehensive, sampling up to 98% of the world's population. The World Happiness Database, which is maintained by Ruud Veenhoven in the Netherlands, compiles 3 decades of research on this topic. And when considering its data from 2000 to 2009, the United States ranks, wait for it, 20th in overall life satisfaction. We're number 20. But it's important to note that that's 20th out of 155 countries. Costa Rica, Denmark, and Iceland have the happiest populations. Those of Togo, Tanzania, and Burundi are the unhappiest. It's of note that 6 of the 10 happiest countries are Northern European: Denmark, Iceland, Switzerland, Norway, Finland, and Sweden. And 3 out of 10 are Central American: Costa Rica, Mexico, Panama.
Yeah.
All 10 of the unhappiest countries are African. Ed Diener, one of the world's leading experts on happiness research, reflected on this in 2012 and noted that a major difference between the haves and have-nots in terms of happiness probably relates to societal safety nets. If you look at the top 10 countries and include Canada, which is the country to be named later in the top 10, either institutional or cultural values translate into even the poorest citizens tending to have their basic needs met. Further, Diener cited trust in others as a major contributing factor. When the participants in Denmark, for example, were asked whether they believed their lost wallet or purse would be returned to them, even if found by a stranger, their answer tended to be a resounding yes. Economics may play a role in this. Inhabitants of countries where extreme poverty is common and where there is a marked and obvious gulf between upper and lower economic classes understandably find it difficult to be satisfied with their lives. And this is not to say at all that momentary happiness does not exist in these countries, even amongst the poor, but it is ephemeral compared to the daily struggle for life that they encounter. So while money may not be the only thing that buys happiness, it is incorrect to say it doesn't figure into it. It does. A high GDP, or gross domestic product, helps to facilitate the means to economic and personal security, which is an element of well-being and thus authentic happiness. Wealth also figures into having the resources to protect human rights, to provide meaningful education and higher literacy, and to maintain medical and psychological services that can preserve health and longevity. But it's important to note that personal wealth, as opposed to societal wealth, does not appear to have as robust an influence on happiness. In fact, Diener conducted a study of 100 Americans with net worths of over $125 million and found that on average these individuals were only slightly happier than a randomly selected comparison group. In fact, more than a third of these individuals scored lower on happiness than average Americans. This suggests that the intelligent use of shared wealth, which may necessitate heavier taxation and redistribution, as is common in European countries, seems more important than anything. Another robust predictor of personal happiness is social contact and relationships, especially with other happy people. Again, this seems to jive with 3 of the Latin American countries, which are not thought of as first world with regards to income, but they're in the top 10 of happiness. Latino cultures emphasize the importance of extended family and community-based support, and are also known for relatively frequent holiday and other celebrations that bring revelers together. In short, people spend more time together, and more of that time in happy pursuits, which seems to correspond with life satisfaction. Now, materialism, which I consider to be an unfortunately common value in our society, is something that correlates, well, with unhappiness. Engaging in work with either a job equals money or ladder climbing attitude, both of which focus on extrinsic reinforcers, has been shown by many, including Rath and Harder in a 2010 paper, to increase stress and disengagement, and to lower happiness. In contrast, when individuals feel called to engage in a profession, happiness is increased. But we live in a time and place where our own state government seems motivated to push our emerging adults toward vocations based solely on economic prospects, a view that in some part must reflect the values of at least a plurality in our society. I myself have heard many secondhand stories from undergraduates over the years in which well-meaning parents, family, and other adults insisted that their adult children choose one career path over another solely based on perceived economic advantage. Especially given that salaries, our main extrinsic rewards, have been flat for some time, it's no wonder that personal morale, even amongst the employed, is not as high as it could be in our country. Why is it important to be happy? And what can we do to increase our own happiness and that of others? Well, authentic happiness in itself is a reward. It's a state that's associated with warm, fuzzy feelings and a sense of purpose and connectedness with the world around you. So that's nice. Most of us would agree that we could all stand a little to a lot more of that. However, happy people also tend to have other positive outcomes as well when compared to those who are less happy. Happy individuals have a buffer against psychological disorders of all stripes. In their review of longitudinal and experimental studies, Lubomirsky, King, and Diener found that happy people go on to have fewer depressive and social anxiety symptoms and better overall mental health. Happy individuals are more altruistic in their work. They tend to provide better customer service. And they positively and personally invest in their work and in the success of their organizations. They are less lonely, more satisfied with their marriages, and receive more support from friends. They are perceived by others to have better social skills and even to have a better chance of going to heaven. Just telling you what the research says. Perhaps the most important one, though, is longer life. Yes, that's right. Longer life. One study suggests that very happy people live about 1 decade longer than unhappy people. This coincides with other physiological data that suggests happiness is associated with a more active immune system and more physical activity. So all in all, being very happy sounds like a really good deal. But the reality is that not all of us would even say that we are happy in our lives. And even those that do probably have room for improvement. So what are some things that you and I can do to enhance our happiness? Well, several things stand out, and there are a few others I will add to a list. First, do increase the number of pleasurable experiences in your life, but don't step onto the hedonic treadmill. Remember that pleasurable experience is part of achieving authentic happiness, and this tends to be associated with high flow states, those that are energizing and highly engaging. So try the following exercise as a start. Think of the things that you spend your waking hours on in life. Family, work, hobbies, chores, exercise, dates, play, so on, so on. The number of categories don't matter. Then draw a circle and create pie slices for each one of those categories that corresponds to the proportion of time you estimate you spend on each right now. And be honest. Then take a good look at this pie. Is this what you want to be eating? This pie? Are you spending enough time that make you happy? Or are the things that don't really make you happy huge, huge slices of your pie? Try and find a way to make the pleasurable slices bigger. Second, find out your personal strengths and engage in activities that fit those. Simple hard work and persistence can help you meet many external goals, but your life is going to be most satisfying if every day in your work you are using the skills that you really have. And there are many surveys available to accomplish this knowledge, this insight. A good place to start is the University of Pennsylvania's AuthenticHappiness.com website. If you register there, you could try a questionnaire called the Brief Strengths Test that will provide an introduction for you in this direction. Third, move to Canada. Or Denmark, or Costa Rica, or more simply, renew, cultivate, and deepen your connections with family and friends. Not only is this likely to build your awareness of interconnectedness, but it is also likely to bring more opportunities for socialization, more joyous occasions to attend, and more support that will serve as a life preserver when times are tough. Further, these interactions will also give you a chance to give support and love to others, which helps you act with a higher purpose and also to enjoy the longer-lasting happiness that comes along with doing good. One way that you can begin doing this is to write a gratitude letter. This is a letter, or email, or Facebook message, or whatever works for you. It can be half a page, or a whole page, or longer, that expresses your gratefulness to a friend, a parent, a teacher, or whomever for the positive effect that person has had on your life. They will appreciate it, and the exercise will help you to relive or savor the positive aspects of that relationship. Fourth, be mindful of your daily experience. Mindfulness, which largely has to do with the awareness of the complexity of thoughts, feelings, and interactions that we experience on a daily basis, is a topic that deserves its own service. In fact, the training and practice of mindfulness, which is championed by the likes of folks like Jon Kabat-Zinn, has proven effective enough in positive practice that it is a buzzword even in conservative clinical psychology circles. There are many pluses to mindfulness. It helps you avoid getting sucked into a downward emotional spiral that negative thinking can cause. It allows you to become more aware of the thoughts that happen before they lead to harmful actions, as in the nonviolent communication paradigm that Courtney Morrison has so kindly introduced us to. It allows you to choose to refocus in hectic or stressful circumstances on more positive aspects of your experience or on what really needs to get done right now. All in all, it helps maintain the correct balance of positive to negative affect that is necessary for both momentary and authentic happiness. Ed Diener and his son, Robert, who is also a positive psychologist, have come up with a simple strategy represented by the acronym AIM, or AIM, that you can try. First, pay attention to daily positive experiences. Challenge negative interpretations of events. And use your memory to bank positive experiences that you can recall later and which will enhance your mood and your positive perspective. 5, if you do have discretionary spending money, choose experiences or charity over things. This is an old saw, but research in positive psychology really has borne it out. Experiences tend to stay with us, and we can recall them, and they allow us a chance to psychologically savor them in the future. They're a counterbalance to stress and negativity in the present. Charity, and especially when it comes to providing for the basic needs of people who are disadvantaged, is engaging and meaningful, and of course it fits our UU principles, but it also is something that helps, again, one to attach to a higher purpose. New material things, however, are easily adapted to and lose their luster. Even a Ferrari eventually becomes just the car. Sixth, be curious. Be open to new experiences and new knowledge. It helps you to avoid adaptation or getting used to the positive activities that you already engage in. You basically, when you're curious, you're constantly adding to your toolbox of ways to engage with others, ways to explore your strengths, to stay intellectually challenged and excited, and increase the possibility of positive emotional experiences. So commit to doing one new thing next week and every week. Choose one now. Finally, you can read more about positive psychology and the science of happiness. There are so many interesting concepts, so many ways that you can infuse this into your life. A very good place to start is Seligman's book, Flourish. And another is Sonia Lubomirsky's The How of Happiness. I highly recommend it. Feel like singing a hymn? It's a good one. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. It's a fitting way to end. It is number 29. Stand if you're able, and I'd be happy to talk with folks after the service. I don't think we have time for discussion, but I'm happy to talk with
Joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like flowers we for thee, hail thee as the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the pain of doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the joy of day. All thy works with joy surround thee, earth and heaven reflect thy rays. Stars and planets sing around thee, center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, bustling meadow, flashing sea, chanting bird and flowing fountain, call us to rejoice in thee. Thou art giving and forgiving, ever blessing, ever blessed, wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth of happy rest. Ever singing, march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music lifts us sunward in the triumph song of life.
Let me,
Just one little quick announcement, the potluck on Wednesday night, that could be your one new thing.
Well, do you know of any grants out there that would allow me the opportunity to prove that being rich won't make me happy?
That's the Gates Foundation. They might help us. Let me exchange the chalice, extinguish the chalice with the closing words